used to think that yoga was mainly just stretching, something you do to feel better, you know? But at some point I started wondering, what actually is yoga? And where did it come from? And so I decided to follow that curiosity. I took more classes, I read books, I spoke to instructors, and I even became a certified yoga teacher and taught a couple of classes. Right now I am teaching my first class in 18 minutes. I am very nervous. This is my setup with my laptop on the chair and then the yoga mat right here. This is my lesson plan of what I want to do and what blocks of poses I want to go through. Very nervous, but also excited. And the deeper I went, the more complex and layered the concept of yoga became. And as it turned out, it's not just one thing. So this video is my attempt to piece it all together from ancient India to, well, a yoga mat in my apartment. I have this one rule. If you don't know something, go ask people who do. And that's exactly what I did back in 2022, I think, when I signed up for a 200-hour yoga teacher training program here in Toronto at Kula Yoga Studio. Because really, what better way is there to understand something than by preparing to teach it to someone else? I was working full-time, so it took me about 6 months to complete the course. Most of my evenings and weekends were filled with attending classes, learning, practicing, and taking in everything from technical breakdowns of postures and human anatomy to the deeper roots of yoga philosophy. And the more I studied, the more it became clear to me that yoga goes way beyond just the physical movement. That's just one layer. Behind the asanas, there's an entire philosophy, a history, and a way of seeing yourself and the world differently. Yoga is an ancient tradition. For many, it's not just movement, it's a way of life. And while I was in Bali, a place where so many people come to deepen their practice, I had an amazing chance to meet Amanda and Akshay, two wonderful teachers who have also kindly agreed to share their perspectives on yoga in this video. To understand what yoga really is, we have to go back, way back. The word yoga comes from Sanskrit and it means union. And while its exact origin is really hard to pin down, we see some of the earliest traces in the Indus Valley civilization, one of the oldest in the world. Archaeologists discovered seals showing figures in meditative postures, suggesting early forms of inner practice.
It goes back to Indus Valley civilization. The Indus River, Saraswati River was there. That's where yoga began. And it is a practice of tradition of guru and shishya. So earlier days yoga was taught one-on-one and more for self-inquiry, how one can really live a happy life, healthy life, and life with purpose.
A few centuries later, the first written references to yoga appear in the Vedas, ancient Hindu scriptures dating back over 3,000 years. Yoga at the time wasn't about movement, it was a spiritual discipline, a way to connect with something beyond the physical self through ritual, breath, and silence. In yogic tradition, the story often begins with Shiva, known as the first yogi, Adi Yogi, and the first teacher, Adi Guru. According to the legend, Shiva reached enlightenment and passed on his knowledge to 7 sages by the banks of a Himalayan lake. And then these sages spread the teachings across India, and from there, yoga began to evolve. To understand that evolution, there are 4 key texts that map the journey, like milestones. Each one offers a different window into what yoga is and what it's meant to be. And the first of the 4 is the Upanishads, yoga as inner realization. In the Upanishads, yoga turned inwards, and the Upanishads are actually the final part of the Vedas. These ancient Indian texts written more than 2,000 years ago introduced powerful ideas like Atman, which means the true inner self, and the Brahman, the universal consciousness that connects everything. The goal here wasn't movement but stillness, to quiet the mind, to turn attention inward. And if there were any postures at this stage, they were very simple and seated ones designed to support long period of stillness and focus, meditation. The next one is the Bhagavad Gita,
Yoga is a way of living. The Bhagavad Gita is one of the most influential texts in the history of yoga. The story takes place on a battlefield, but the battle is symbolic. A warrior named Arjuna is faced with the impossible decision. In that moment, his guide, Krishna, begins a deep philosophical conversation with him. And through their dialogue, the Gita reveals that yoga isn't about escaping life, it's about living it with clarity, purpose, and peace. The Gita outlines 3 key paths of yoga, 3 different ways to move through the world. And the first one would be the karma yoga, the yoga of action. The next one we have bhakti yoga, and that would be the yoga of devotion, surrendering to something greater, whether it's a deity or the universal self. And the last one, the third one, is jnana yoga, the yoga of knowledge. In Bhagavad Gita, yoga isn't just a practice, it's a way of living and a guide for making decisions, even in the life's most difficult moments.
Yoga is just a way of being, when you practice, you get to know how blissful it is and enjoy the practice. We should always enjoy whatever we are doing. Whole point is that we become more and more happier every day. Who doesn't want to become happy, right?
Yes, that's true. Definitely. Yeah.
And get freedom from all this dualities, all these things going on in our head. So Ayurveda gives that definition. The health means, not only being healthy physically, but mental health, spiritual health. So we have to live a holistic life.
Yeah.
That's what is the whole point of yoga or whatever we are doing. So live a holistic life and a happy life.
The third one is Patanjali's Yoga Sūtras, the classical system of yoga. Honestly, if yoga did have a user manual, this would probably be it. The Yoga Sūtras of Patanjali offered something that hadn't existed before, a very clear step-by-step guide to the yogic path. In these short but very powerful verses, Patanjali laid out what's known as the 8 limbs of yoga, a structured system for inner growth and spiritual evolution. This was the very first time that yoga was presented as a full philosophical system, not just a set of practices, but a full path towards this inner freedom.
Patanjali calls this as 8 limbs of yoga. I will say that is the actual way of practicing yoga as a lifestyle. Yamas and niyamas, these are the first 2 steps which talks about personal values and social values. And there are 5 yamas and 5 niyamas. These are the first 2 steps. And then comes the asana, pranayam. Pratyahara is a withdrawal of the senses. If you see now, the current day's scenario is that we get pulled by the senses. Senses are more dominant. And if we become more dependent on the senses, then the less happier we become. And in yoga, interestingly, mind is also considered as sense.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So mind has 4 aspects. First one is ego, that identification.
Yes.
So which is there to protect us. And memory, we are what we are, carrying all our impression of the past.
We are who we think we are.
Yeah, that's all memory, right? And intellect, which is guiding us, this is right, this is wrong, do this, don't do this. And the last one is random thoughts itself, which we don't know how we get this.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
All these random thoughts that we are receiving, this is also considered as senses in yoga. A yogi withdraws the senses and he becomes more himself. That's when the meditation begins. So this is one of the very important step of yoga that we all have forgotten. We focus more on the asana.
The physical part of it.
Dharana is your focus. Like, where are you devoting your time into? And dhyana is, what's my mind journey? Like, even in the smaller level, in a day-to-day level, where my mind is flowing. Being aware of that is meditation, dhyana. And samadhi is absolute oneness. Like, there should be some element in us we really connect.
Yeah.
And we really resonate. And that's like a absolute oneness is there. There is no separation.
And well, this brings us to the rise of modern yoga. For centuries, yoga was mostly focused on the mind and spirit. But in the 15th century, a new idea began to take shape, that the body, too, could be a gateway inward in a way. And the Hatha Yoga Pradīpikā is one of the most important texts of the time. It introduced postures and breath control, so focused on asanas and pranayamas. But the postures were there not to build strength or flexibility, but more so to prepare the body for stillness and meditation. With strong body, you can have strong mind. These ideas became the foundation for modern yoga, and by the 19th and 20th centuries, a new generation of teachers helped bring yoga into the modern world. They blended ancient practices with new approaches and really opened the door for yoga to reach a global audience. And this flow and posture-based approach that we see in yoga classes today, well, it all started there. I think it's also important to talk about the distinction between yoga and religion. Yoga did always have a spiritual dimension, but it doesn't belong to any one religion. And there are three main religions that I want to talk about. The first one is Hinduism. Yoga is the path towards liberation, moksha. Then the second religion, we have Buddhism, where yogic practices support presence, awareness, and predominantly non-attachment. And then the third important religion in which yoga plays a role is Jainism, where yoga is this part of a disciplined life in a way. Each religion, each tradition shaped yoga in its own way, but at its core, yoga has always been a path to the self, a way to connect with something deeper, regardless of belief. I think it's also important to say here a few words about science. Well, while I was researching this part, I came across a great summary article from Box. Unsurprisingly, yoga has been shown to help with, flexibility, lower back pain, overall body awareness. But the part that I like the most is that the benefits go far beyond just physical movement. One of the reasons yoga feels so good, especially after a stressful day, it's because of how it affects our nervous system. Yoga activates our parasympathetic nervous system, sometimes called the rest and digest response. And this helps slow your heart rate, lower cortisol level, and shift your body into a calmer and more restorative state. So while yoga might begin as a physical practice, it does end up influencing how we feel and how we respond to stress and how we recover mentally and physically.
And then I joined the lesson, and actually it was fun. And what I felt in my body, it was something different after I finished the practice. I felt so relaxed. I slept very well, like you're sleeping like a baby, like in a deep sleep. And I woke up, I was like, oh, actually I feel good. And then I kept doing that. I want to do something that can make me feel good. Like, I want to be the best Amanda in the future, This is how I discovered yoga in total.
Yeah.
And then ever since I practiced yoga, I felt that my life changed. I feel a lot stronger, flexible, and the mindset, you used to think a lot of negativity, but once you started practicing, everything changed. Yeah, I became like more positive. It's still like a lot to learn,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, nobody is perfect. Everybody have flaws. So, but it helps you to grow, to become a better person. Sometimes in this life we cannot control things, right? But we can adjust, we can adapt. So, in my own practice, when I teach the students, I hope I can inspire them to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
It could be anything, I don't know.
No, that's beautiful. I can definitely say I left your classes inspired. Yoga is something I love, something that I find myself always returning to, and something that I sometimes love to share with others. For some, it is a spiritual practice. For others, it's mainly physical. For many, it's somewhere in between. But I think maybe that is the beauty of yoga, that it doesn't have to be just this one thing. And for me, personally, I think yoga is still evolving, but I'll be honest, I did start looking at it a bit more from a philosophical angle, I guess, after I finished doing this deep dive. And I wonder, what is yoga for you? But thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. And don't forget to practice yoga. Bye.